the song that made Paul Anka a legend. How does a kid from Canada go from writing a song for his crush to composing Frank Sinatra's most iconic hit? Picture being just 14 years old and suddenly hearing your name on every radio station in the country. That's the story of how a shy boy from Ottawa became a rock legend. Today, we're traveling back to that magical moment when one song didn't just change his life, it changed how the world saw Paul Anka forever. It all started in Ottawa, Canada's quiet capital. Paul Albert Anka was born there in 1941 to Lebanese immigrant parents chasing a better future. His preciousest hen sland on round. Dad Andy ran a small family restaurant. His mom Camelia was the heart of their home. Both wanted one thing, a stable life for their son, better than the brawn, one they'd known. But from a young age, Paul showed signs he was headed down a different path. While other kids played hockey, he was glued to the radio, soaking up the voices that filled the airwaves in those magical years. Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Perry. Como artists who turned the air into pure emotion. Paul didn't quite get how. They did it, but he knew he wanted to learn. He wanted to make people feel the same way. By 10, he was scribbling his first lyrics in a notebook he hid under his bed random. Thoughts, lines inspired by schoolyard crushes or the dreams of a kid who felt different, already showing flashes of something special. He also joined the Dizem Bon local church choir, where he discovered something that would shape his destiny. The power of a collective voice, the magic of harmony, and the emotion a single note could carry when fueled by faith and passion. Meanwhile, the world outside was changing. It was the mid-50s, and the US was in the tenna, being middle of a cultural explosion. Youth was finding its own identity, and with it came a new sound, rock and roll. Elvis Presley was already ruling the charts. Bill Haley and Chuck Berry were lighting up record players, and though Canada felt far from that sonic revolution, its echoes reached Ottawa's quiet neighborhoods. From records passed hand to hand and late-night radio shows, Paul soaked up the youthful energy of freedom, love, and rebellion. At that age, few took him seriously, but he knew something big was about to begin. Before we go on, we'd love to get to know you better. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Let's keep going. Soon, love entered Paul's life. At 15, like so many teens, he fell hard for someone. Out of reach, Diana Ayub, a girl a few years older who worked as a nanny for a pleated Buddha's place neighboring family. She was kind, always smiling, and to Paul, absolutely perfect. Every time he saw her, the world stopped. But Diana barely noticed him, a classic, impossible love that leaves a lifelong mark. One afternoon, with his guitar across his knees and frustration swirling in his binned chest, Paul started writing. Without knowing it, he was crafting one of the century's most popular songs. But writing wasn't enough. Paul wanted to record it, to make it echo beyond his bedroom. The problem? No money. So, with the determination that would define him, he turned to his family for help. He convinced his uncle to lend him a few bucks, promising to pay him back big time one day. With that small loan, he rounded up some local musicians and rented a da-pay, modest studio in Ottawa. During rehearsals, you could feel the song's special energy. Paul started performing it at small clubs and community events. The audiences, without realizing it, were witnessing the birth of a classic. Though the stages were humble, every performance of Diana left a mark on listeners. There was something in his voice, a mix of shyness and conviction, that connected with anyone who'd ever loved without being loved back. But Paul knew that to make it big, he had to leave his hometown. So he made a bold move. He headed to New York. With a small suitcase, his guitar, and a tape of Diana, he set off on an adventure. A teenager alone in a massive city, he carried a dream too big to give up on. There, he met producer Don Costa, who saw something special in him, an authenticity you couldn't fake. Costa got him an audition with ABC Paramount Records, a label hunting for young talent to rival Elvis Presley's phenomenon. When the producers heard Diana, the room changed. It was fresh, innocent, and had an irresistible spark. Within weeks, the song was professionally recorded and released. What happened next was unreal. Diana shot up the charts. In 1957, it became one of the world's best-selling singles, hitting #1 in the US, Canada, and the UK. Paul Anka went from an unknown kid with a crush to a global sensation at just 16 years old. Give us a like if you're loving this story. Let's keep going. The success of Diana launched him to fame in months. Paul became one of the first teen idols in history, even before the term was a thing. Unlike many of his peers, he didn't just sing, he wrote his own songs. That set him apart, giving him a vision beyond the stage. While other artists chased new songs to record, Paul was already writing his own and planning the next ones. Soon, he started composing for others, and his lyrics found their way to the biggest voices of the era. Buddy Holly was one of the first to sing Paul's words with "It Doesn't Matter Anymore."
There you going, baby. Here am I. Well, you left me here some...
Then came others like Tom Jones, belting out "She's a Lady" with full force. His natural knack for blending emotion and melody made him a go-to songwriter. Yet, behind the glitz and fame, Paul was still that curious kid observing the world, jotting notes. He never stopped writing in his notebook, always searching for the story behind every feeling. The young man from Ottawa had become an international star, but the best was yet to come. During those early months of fame, Paul toured the US and Europe with hits like "You Are My Destiny," building on Diana's success. Every city greeted him with screams, cameras, and crowds trailing his every step. He was a global phenomenon, one of the first major youth stars in history. And soon, another big opportunity came knocking. His first major TV appearance was on the legendary The Ed Sullivan Show, the same stage where the Beatles and Elvis Presley would later debut, a dream spot for millions of artists. There, in a sharp suit with his shy smile, he performed Diana for millions. That night, the kid from Ottawa won over America for good. Next came American Bandstand, the hottest show for teens at the time. Every time the fish and zest of bass, camera zoomed in on his face, girls swooned. His smooth voice, sincere gaze, and natural charm made him the romantic ideal of the 50s. One after another, his songs climbed the charts. "Lonely Boy," "Put Your Head on My Shoulder."
Put your head on my shoulder.
Each had that perfect mix of tenderness, melancholy, and melody that made them impossible not to sing along to. Everyone wondered, how could a kid so young write like that? The truth is, his creative process was both meticulous and instinctive. He'd spend hours searching for the perfect word or note to capture what he felt. He said songs came to him like someone whispering in his ear, and his job was just not to interrupt the moment. In just a couple of years, Paul went from local clubs to filling theaters in Paris, London, and Rome. In Europe, his music became a cultural phenomenon, with magazines calling him the boy with the eternal smile and the ambassador of romance. But behind the lights, fame, and adoration was a more human story. Let's not diss it. Forget through all this, Paul Anka was still a teenager. While his friends were Studying or catching movies, he was living in hotels, surrounded by managers, reporters, and grown-up musicians. The success that came so fast forced him to grow up quickly. He learned to be disciplined, to protect his voice, to handle media pressure, and though he loved the audience's affection, he started to feel the weight of being a symbol so young. Paul became the face of a generation dreaming of perfect love and pure emotions. He was the guy every parent approved of and every girl wanted to meet. But that same perfection created a dilemma. Offstage, Anka felt the pressure to keep up an impeccable image. He couldn't slip up, couldn't show exhaustion or sadness. He had to always be the sweet kid, the gentleman of pop. Still, his career kept soaring. In the studio, he showed surprising maturity, overseeing recordings, weighing in on arrangements, and obsessing over every detail of his songs. He was a complete artist. His discipline and business savvy caught the pleasant industry's eye. While others settled for recording what they were given, Paul wanted to understand the business inside out. He learned about contracts, copyrights, and production, a curiosity that would later make him one of the smartest musicians of his generation. What's your favorite Paul Anka song? Drop it in the comments. But as fast as fame came, it started to fade. The industry began to shift, and the Brostovely dance of Cayman world that had lifted Paul Anka to the top was about to vanish. The 60s were coming, bringing a new musical revolution. The Beatles were about to change everything, and teens would start chasing new sounds, new styles, new faces. The Ottawa kid who'd conquered the world would have to reinvent himself again. Because if one thing defined Paul Anka's life, it was his ability to adapt without losing who he was. While many saw the end of his career, he saw a different opportunity. If the audience wanted new sounds, Paul would focus on what he did best, writing songs. He couldn't keep being the kid in the suit with the smile, so he'd be the mind behind the emotion. He wrote the theme for The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, a melody that accompanied millions of American nights for decades, along with hits like Teddy for Connie Francis. But the peak of his songwriting career came with a song that crossed generations, genres, and borders, My Way.
For what is a man? What has he got?
It started with a French song called Comme d'habitude, a melancholic tune about routine and heartbreak. When Paul heard it in Paris, something clicked. He felt he could transform it. He secured the rights, returned to his New York hotel room, and in one inspired night wrote a brand new lyric. It began with a line that would make history. Paul wasn't thinking of himself to sing it. He had Frank Sinatra in mind, the artist he'd idolized since his Ottawa childhood. He knew Sinatra was tired of the industry, considering retirement, and wanted to write him a fitting farewell.
And I bit off more than I could chew.
A song about looking back with pride, embracing life's wins and mistakes with dignity intact. A song that said, in simple words, I did it my way. When Sinatra heard it, he was moved. He said it was exactly what he wanted to tell the world. In 1969, he recorded My Way.
And did it my way.
It became his eternal anthem, the farewell everyone dreams of. Elegant, honest, powerful. What no one could have guessed was that it also mirrored Paul Anka himself. Like Sinatra, he'd done everything his way, never chasing trends, never giving up, always believing in his voice. My Way was a statement of principles, written by someone who understood reinvention, sung by another genius who'd lived it all. It was Anka's songwriting peak, a man who'd tasted success both on stage and behind the scenes, but his story wasn't over. The 70s brought a new chapter. After a decade focused on writing for others, Paul returned to performing with a song that surprised the world.
Inside you, I see it showing.
It was 1974, and Paul, now a grown man, showed a more mature side. The duet with Odia Coates became an instant hit. The song celebrated love and the arrival of a child. Some critics called it sappy, but the public embraced it wholeheartedly. It was Paul Anka speaking from maturity, from adult love, connecting with a new generation. Through that decade and the next, he kept exploring new styles, collaborating with giants like Tom Jones, Michael Jackson, and Odia Coates. His versatility let him adapt to changing times without losing his core, even dipping into TV and film, proving his charisma worked in any format. He'd gone from teen idol to mature crooner, singing songs about life, time, and love in 21 Point all its forms. While his status as a classic artist solidified in the US, his popularity in Latin America reached staggering heights. Subscribe to the channel if you want us to tell the story of your favorite artist. Paul Anka became a symbol of timeless romance, a bridge between generations and cultures. He achieved what few artists do, staying relevant without losing authenticity. In the end, it all started with a song written for love. A kid too shy to confess his feelings found in music, a language that carried him through life. Maybe that's the secret to success, doing things for love even when no one believes in you. Paul Anka did it. He took his guitar, his notebook, and his voice, and with them wrote his destiny. He turned shyness into art, rejection into inspiration, and nostalgia into melodies that still resonate over half a century later. His story reminds us that talent alone isn't enough without heart, and sometimes a single song can change everything. And that's the end of our journey. We'll leave you with a link to another video with a great music story if you want to keep reliving the nostalgia of those times. Catch you next time.